What up, y'all? This is Patrick Hayes, and today what I wanted to do is talk a little bit about something I've been thinking about. I've been reading this book by Jack Kerouac called On the Road. Some of you may have heard of it. And, it's really been inspiring my appreciation for appreciation of the past and memories, because of the way that he weaves all of his memories together into this beautiful story that really highlights all the magical things that happened, and actually highlights a lot of, say, like troubling things that happened in such a glorious light of beautiful nostalgia that it creates this, you can just feel that this story is dipped in the golden appreciation for these amazing moments that this guy had and shared with his friends over this period when he was traveling on the road. And it had me thinking, because on one hand we talk a lot about forgetting about the past. Our past is not what we need. Forget about the past and just live totally in the present. And that's so true. And so the statement, forget about your past and live in the present, I would say is a absolutely true statement. While at the same time, I also feel like one of the best ways to, in a sense, forget about your past is to make peace with your past. So it's like, in a sense, we're never really going to forget fully about our past. Maybe we won't be thinking about it in the moment, and it's important to be super present in the moment when we're doing things. But the residue of our past will always be there to a certain degree. And so what we would call like a cleansing or a healing from traumas or negativity in the past is actually what I would say is making peace with our past, right? So how do we make peace with our past? And, in a lot of ways, this isn't necessarily exactly what he was doing in the book, but it had me thinking like that, because it's like every moment that we live, we are, in a sense, an architect of the experience. And what I mean by that is, this is something you've probably all heard before, but I'm gonna say it in a different way. So we create our own reality, right? And we create our own experience every time we have an experience, and it's created out of what we focus on, because there's billions and billions, there's infinite things we could focus on in any moment, right? Right now I could look at the rocks, I could look at the patterns in the rocks, I could look at the sky, I could think about something in my past, I could listen to the cars that are driving by on the freeway down there, I could do a million different things. But what creates the structure of my moment is the things that I focus on, right? So very much we are the architects of the moment. And as far as memory goes, what we remember are the structures that we build from what we're focusing on in the moment. So our memories are literally, we're like architects, and our memories are built up out of the kinds of interpretations and the kinds of awarenesses that we have in those moments. And so in many ways, what creates our reality is how we choose to remember and how we choose to focus on the moment. And this is nothing new. We've heard this a million times before in the conscious community. But this idea of it like we are an architect of every moment. This is where I felt like I saw it from a bit of a different perspective recently. We are an architect of every specific moment, and all of the building materials of not only our memories, but of the moment that we experience are right in front of us. So what are we gonna build this experience out of? We're gonna build it out of the appreciation for the warmth of the sun. We're gonna build it out of the appreciation for the gentle breeze that we feel. Are we gonna build it out of the excitement for the potential victory that we're going to experience? Are we gonna build it out of all the beautiful things? Or are we gonna build it out of the discomforts of the things we don't like? Because one of the practices that has been really powerful for me, and kind of this whole strain of thought has re-inspired me to start doing it again, was the practice of every day writing down all my highlights of the day. And what I found this did was that it really created a more stable memory of the beauty and the appreciation and the triumph that I experienced on a daily basis. Because there's a million things that we experience. We're going to experience uncomfortable moments. We're going to experience, negative moments. But when we can sit down at the end of the day and interpret these things in a way that is empowering, enlightening, and exciting and grateful, and then write that down, it like cements that into our memory. And then our memory of that time or that moment is associated with those highlights, and then they become fuel for us. And it's so important that our memories become fuel for us, because if they're not fuel, I guess they could be neutral, but if they're not fuel, most likely they are baggage, right? They're holding us back. So how do we become architects not only of the moment, but of our memory? And we do that by thinking of it like that literally there's billions and billions of things to focus on. So when we focus on those things that will create a beautiful structure, and then we highlight those things in our memory, and even if they're things that are difficult, we interpret them in a way that creates an amazing story that has a moral. And when we do that, then our memories give us fuel. And I'm not saying we should live in the past, but again, like everything that we've experienced thus far has made us who we are. And so if we can have it make us something that's more empowered, more beautiful, more grateful, more excited, then why not do that? And we do that by creating our memories and creating our experience like an architect, and doing that consciously. So, one of the funny things I was thinking about is that it's the hard times that make the best stories. It's like the beautiful times make the best experiences, but the difficult times, those crazy times where, the car broke down, you had to walk like 12 miles and you had no cell phone, and then, some guy picked you up hitchhiking in the rain, and you were, he was really weird and crazy, and you thought he was going to kill you, and then you like ran away from him at a gas station, and you found out, like those kinds of stories. It's like in the moment they probably suck, but they do make the best stories, right? And so then we can appreciate it because it's hilarious. These stories become funny, or they become adventurous, and then they can actually be remembered. They can become a memory that still gives us fuel, even though in the moment it might have been difficult. And so it's like if we just lived those beautiful moments all the time, then we wouldn't have these amazing stories to share and amazing insights, because oftentimes, it's from these difficult situations that we get these amazing insights. And it's always funny because it seemed to me it was like the people that were somewhat adventurous but didn't have very much foresight seemed to always have the craziest, funniest stories, because they were always like diving into these things without thinking very much about it before, and having these like incredible, like crazy experiences happen to them. I used to know a lot of people like this. It's funny, because I used to live in more of a community of like drug doing, vagabond, kind of wild, like jail going folks. And these people all had the like most insane stories, because they're always doing stupid shit and getting themselves into like crazy predicaments. And there's something beautiful about that, right? I'm not recommending be stupid and get yourself into negative situations, but what I am saying is embrace those difficult situations as, opportunity to learn something, and then an opportunity for a great story. And this is something that like it really was brought back to me from this book, On the Road by Jack Kerouac, because this is exactly what he's going through. They're doing all this like stupid shit and not thinking about what they're doing in advance, and there's a beauty to that freedom, right? And he's really reveling in that beauty, and then they find themselves in these like crazy predicaments that they wiggle their way into and out of, and then it creates this amazing story, and there's so much value in that. So there's value in our past, there's value in our stories, right? But I think the key is being able to make peace with them. And we make peace with them by being able to interpret the stories in a way that brings us value, that brings us wisdom, so we learn something from them, and then appreciating the hilarity of these crazy predicaments we get ourselves into, and not judging ourselves for like being dumb, but actually seeing the divine comedy in these things, because there really is so much humor in the craziness of like the childish mistakes that we make being a human, right? Some of the stupid things that we do. And in making peace with these experiences and these decisions that we made, we heal ourselves, right? Because then that memory is no longer draining us, and actually it brings a smile to our face. You know, and in order to do that, we have to not take ourselves too seriously. You know, because we're so worried about like, oh, I made a dumb decision. I don't want anyone to know I made a dumb decision, so I won't tell that story. Or I don't even think about it because I judge myself every time I think about it. Then we're not going to be able to see it for what it really is. And oftentimes we can look at it in a way where it really is funny and it fuels us and it's beautiful. And so we can make peace with our past. And then we can actually live more in the present because we don't have a negative residue holding us back. So in a sense, that is a way of like forgetting our past. Even though we'll remember it and still celebrate it, it's a way of like letting our energy body forget it, so it's not holding a negative residue within our field that's, you know, preventing us. So like I said, I'm sure you've heard this before in one way or another, but it was just coming up for me because I felt like I had a different kind of way of articulating it, this idea of being the architect of the moment and then an architect of your past by being able to interpret it through a lens that fuels you. And, you know, in every moment we can remember that literally in that moment we are building our experience out of all of the substrate of that moment. So there's a million billion different building materials in every moment that we're living in. And what we choose to focus on and what we choose to remember and what we choose to, if we choose to do this, write down as our experience on a daily basis crystallizes into our past or our relationship with that period in time, which then acts in many ways like a platform for the future. So anyway, that's my little ramble. If you haven't checked out the book, I would check it out, Jack Kerouac, On the Road. It's a crazy story. It's really fun. And yeah, so much love to you. This is Patrick Hayes. Like, subscribe, share with your friends, and I'll talk to you next time. One love.